Welcome to the Hateful Hitman Podcast. Brought to you by Hitman Fantasy Productions. Premier football coverage from college to NFL to fantasy and everything in between. And now, in the Hitman's Hideout, here's your host, Chris Strasbaugh.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Hateful Hitman Podcast. Skipped last week. Had to have my dad over working on a vehicle out back, and I know crap about cars, so had to have Dad come in, tag him in. We had to do that on Tuesday night, so didn't get back in chance to do the weekly recap. Normally don't podcast on Wednesdays if I don't have to. I was going to do it last night. I live right across the street from a fire station. They were doing all their testing. I'm talking they tested from 5 o'clock until 9:30. So I'm not going to have all that going on in the background either. So I'm going to do a little quick, little kind of a hybrid touch on week 4, kind of give a little insight into week 5. You know, short, sweet, to the point. But first, we got some news to talk about.
Here's what we know.
Dallas Cowboys have released two-time Pro Bowler linebacker, heart and soul of that defense, Jaylon Smith. The news broke sometime last evening. I think the Cowboys made it official sometime today. And I'm just going to give you my quick thoughts on it, both professionally and personally. I'll start with personal, and it may bleed over into one to the other. I mean, this guy was my favorite Cowboy. Once Jason Witten left and went and tried to play football for the Raiders, Jason Witten was, my favorite Cowboy after they got rid of Romo. It was him and Romo for so many years, and then, they lost Witten, and he went to the Raiders, and Jaylon Smith was my favorite Cowboy. I mean, his passion for the game, the story. I'm sure you guys all know about the injury he had at Notre Dame. His senior year would have been probably a top 5 pick. Messed up his knee, something terrible. I drafted him in so many IDP leagues as a rookie and just stashed him because I took the chance on the talent, and the chance and the thoughts of him being able to get back. And I got to say, his first year playing was he's getting himself back into the groove, back into playing shape, back into the actual motions and trusting that knee to do what it needed to do. And, then he had 2 really nice seasons with the Cowboys. And I was like, man, I love this kid's story. I love his perseverance. It sucks he went to Notre Dame, but I'm not holding that against him. So, it was just a great story, and he looked like, a great leader for the Cowboys. And, I was like, man, this guy's legit, and he's awesome. And then when they signed him to that big deal, I'm thinking, okay, Dallas is going to have him here for the long run. I was happy about that. But then last year happened. Okay, and I'm not sure. I was just talking this over with Brian Wickham in a text message about him leaving Dallas and wondering where he goes from here and if he lands on the team that has, gives him any kind of fantasy value at all. Because I'm not trading my shares of him just yet. I'm going to hang on to him just to see where he goes. I've had 2 offers already for him. Both of them really trying to lowball me. But I'm going to wait and see, where he goes and how that plays out. But on the professional side of it, if you go back to last year, and it didn't take very long to see that Cowboys defense last year was not good. In fact, they were so bad that if you were playing the Cowboys, you wanted to try to get a hold of whatever fantasy pieces you could because those guys were going to put up some great, fantasy numbers for you. because Dallas was that bad. And even after all that being said, Jalen still had 100 and some tackles last year, an interception, a couple sacks. He's not really a sack specialist. So, he made his money in IDP leagues, making tackles. He made his money the first couple of years as Dallas. He made his real money, his actual game checks, for his lateral movement and his speed side to side. He could track down runners, laterally, and that's very rare, and it's very impressive considering he had just come back from that terrible knee injury. So I think we had 2 really good peak years of Jalen Smith, as the middle linebacker there for the Cowboys. And you could start to see a little bit of decline last year, a decline that really started to show itself when we really saw just how bad the defense really was. So, and I didn't pay attention to it at first because he was still making so many tackles. Okay, so if you look at your IDP stats, every week you're like, man, Jalen Smith had another 10, 12 tackle game. Maybe a pass deflection. If he had an interception, he really blew up. So you don't really pay attention to it at first, but I watch every Cowboys game. Okay, I pay DirecTV an absurdly ridiculous amount of money so that I can have the ticket. So I can watch all the Cowboys games. But you started to see a little bit of the decline. The speed has kind of backed off just a little bit. The ability to run laterally is still there, but it's not at an elite level. And as far as Jerry Jones and the administration goes, it's not at the level that he needs to be at for what they're paying him. So on the field, I get it. I get the move. I understand. And they drafted Micah Parsons, and they got a lot of love for Jabril Cox, the rookie. Who's going to probably have some roles now. I spent the last 40 minutes in my leagues and IDP leagues going and grabbing shares of Jabril Cox. And I'll stash him on my taxi squad, or if I've got a deeper bench, I'll stash him to see how that plays out. But they do have Keanu O'Neal coming back from the injury, and he's more of a linebacker than he is a defensive back for Dallas. They got Parsons moving around from linebacker to defensive end because of the injury to DeMarcus Lawrence. So we're going to see some Jabril Cox. The defensive coordinator for Dallas brought in a whole new scheme. And there's some rumblings that the scheme doesn't fit Jalen Smith's abilities. Not sure I buy that, because I think a guy who has come back from that type of an injury and with his kind of skill set can adapt. The knock here is the injury. Okay, so it's not that he doesn't fit the scheme, because I think he's a good enough athlete that he can adjust to any defensive scheme, whether it's Dan Quinn's or if it's Mickey Andrews. But it's the injury, and it's taken its toll on him. And from what normally is a good 7-8 year, a good solid 7-8 year linebacker run at the NFL level, we only got about two and a partial. Because at the end of his first year playing, you could really see that there was something special in that kid. You had the tail end of that, and then the next year, and then the year after that, and then last year it started to tail off. I texted another buddy of mine, Alex Schellenberger, and I said I think maybe I hung on to Jalen Smith 1 year too long in IDP leagues. I managed to trade him in a couple of places, last off season, because I didn't want to, the bottom to fall out. But I also thought, I'm keeping some because he's such a fantastic talent and a tackling machine. But this year they're phasing him out. They're working in Parsons. They're working in these younger linebackers, and Van Der Esch is still a piece in this linebacking core, and he's been healthy and staying healthy. So when you get right down to it, if Dallas lets him go, they save a little bit of money in the long run. Still have to pay him for the next 2 years. but they're going to save some on next year's salary cap. Okay, so the question came up on Twitter. I saw something earlier. Why not cut him at the end of the season or before this season? Okay, that leads me to believe that there's something going on behind the scenes. It seems like there may be something going on where there's some friction, maybe, some tension, but I can't say. I'm just guessing because I just don't understand if you're going to take that kind of a cap hit. Why would you? Okay, I get if you bench him, you're still paying him without him playing. If you cut him, you're still paying him without him playing for you. He's just going to go play for somebody else. I would think he'll land somewhere. So I don't understand the financial part of it, other than there's probably something going on behind the scenes, and they thought that it was time to make the move and cut ties for both sides. And to that, I'll say this. I hope he lands somewhere where he at least gets a chance, because I really want to see how he does, ability-wise, health-wise, because like I just said, I think he can adjust to any defensive scheme athletically. Health-wise, that's to be determined, and that's what I want to see. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where he lands. If he lands on a team where he's buried deep in the depth chart, then he's probably going to be phased out of the NFL completely, and that's sad. We may never hear from him again. But if you go somewhere where he still has some legitimate, playing time left in him, then that's what I want. I would take him right now over KJ Wright, who plays for the Raiders right now. I'm still taking Jalen Smith over KJ Wright. So to me, there's a place for him out there somewhere. I can't even really think off the top of my head where that place might be. That's why I'm so excited to see where he does land. But if he goes somewhere that's a contender, I mean, how cool would it be to see him get a ring after, suffering through what he suffered through? I know I'm looking way out in the distance. I get that. We're only in week 5, but, really curious to see where he lands, if he lands anywhere. I mean, if he clears waivers and nobody comes and picks him up, then that speaks volumes, and that tells you everything you need to know. Jalen Smith's days are done in the NFL, which would be crazy considering just, a year plus ago, he was, one of the hottest linebackers in the entire NFL. We are moving into week number 5 of the NFL season. We've had a good 4 weeks to see how the NFL is going to start to shake out this year with its players as far as our fantasy enthusiasm goes. And it's kind of good, okay, because, the first couple of weeks we really didn't know what to expect. Okay, we didn't know, but look, one thing we do know for a fact, the crowd noise and the fans make a difference. Okay? It makes a difference. The players play harder, it seems. It's like the atmosphere is just completely different, and it's like it's what it's supposed to be. Like that last year we had was just so wanky. It was almost like last year, we've got to go to Seattle. Well, you go to Seattle and you got to mess with that 12th man. But there was no 12th man. Halfway through the season, they started letting in a couple thousand people. That ain't nothing for that stadium. Okay? It makes a difference. And teams play up because they're playing for the fans. They're playing for the crowds, and, the momentum carries you. So it's almost like last year, you're going to Seattle, yeah. Well, Seattle's going to win because they're at home, and, teams got to travel clear up to Seattle to play. It's almost like you could almost script it. This year it's so much different. I mean, I wouldn't have picked Jameis Winston to light up the Saints week 1. I wouldn't have picked that at all. And then turn around and throw a dud in week 2. May have picked that. May have saw that coming. But I don't want to downplay last year because I said if you win a championship in 2020, you've really done something. But this year, it's back, and it's bigger than ever. And you have 4 weeks to see what's become of the NFL and what we're looking at now. I mean, Mac Jones isn't that bad. Maybe Zach Wilson is bad. Maybe he just needs to get a little bit more seasoning in the NFL. Okay, because at the end of preseason, I would have had it flip-flopped. But now, I mean, Mac Jones almost beat New England the other night. I mean, he played a fine ball game in a very ramped-up, emotional game for both sides. He played fine. I wouldn't say he played great. He played fine. But that's the stepping stones that kid, needs to go through. Sam Darnold changing from green to Carolina blue has done wonders. He's leading the NFL in quarterback rushing touchdowns, I think, if I saw that right. That's insane. I mean, who saw that coming? He had 2 against Dallas. That was really the only threat that they posted against the Cowboys. Was his running. Russell Wilson's throwing the ball like crazy again. That's going to probably taper off. I love seeing Urban Meyer struggle. Tickles me down to my heart, down into the warm. It warms my heart deep down. Because I think it's funny. He's all whining. Well, first you went to a terrible team. You had the number 1 overall pick. You knew your team sucked. Okay, you're not winning 12 games this year. You'd be lucky to win 4. If you've won 4, call it a win. It's a good season for you. Yeah, I'm impressed with the Cowboys' defense. I didn't know what to expect the first couple of weeks. Okay, they played Tampa very, very hard in a game that could have went either way. Tampa got the win, but Dallas hasn't lost since, and they've looked really good, and they're getting better. I mean, the defense looked really good. The offensive line looked really good against Carolina. Carolina's defense is number 1 in the NFL. Another storyline that most of us didn't see coming. We'd have thought it had been Washington or Buffalo. Washington's defense stinks. Buffalo's okay. Carolina's defense is amazing. Like, they sack everything. And they just brought in 2 big corners, Stephon Gilmore and C.J. Henderson. So they beefed up their defense more than it already was. That's very exciting if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, like my good friend Sean Davis is. I'm a Carolina Panthers fan because they got Brian Burns, and he gets a sack every game. News alert. Right now breaking on the Hitman podcast. Jaylon Smith agreeing to terms to the Green Bay Packers. I like this. I like this move. Now, I don't have this is actually breaking news on the NFL Network as we speak right now, 5:30 on Wednesday. Finalizing contract terms. Jaylon Smith is going to the Packers. Okay. Need to let that digest for a minute. And I'm going to pull up their linebacking core. Okay, I got to pull it up here off of Ourlads. This is off of the Ourlads site. Inside linebacker Chris Barnes and inside linebacker Devondre Campbell. Devondre Campbell's been an absolute stat machine this year. May affect his a little bit. I think this move might move Chris Barnes to the bench, and Jaylon Smith will be inserted as the left inside linebacker. They call it an inside linebacker as opposed to a middle linebacker in Green Bay, according to Ourlads. They run a 3-4, and Chris Barnes. I'm taking Jaylon Smith over Chris Barnes, and that's sight unseen. Okay, I don't know who Chris Barnes really is as far as a talent goes, But I'm taking Jalen Smith over Chris Barnes, and I'll definitely do some deeper dive research into Chris Barnes. But at this moment, I love the landing spot for him, and he can only help. Rashawn Gary's not doing it. Rashawn Gary is not turning out to be what he was, as the number one overall player in high school out of Michigan. He's not fulfilling his obligations. So to see this and to see Jalen Smith go to Green Bay, I think this is good. Definitely stay tuned for some more news on that, but it's going to be weird seeing him in cheese color. But as far as our fantasy value goes, give it a couple of weeks, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Back to the NFL. Okay, week 4, we're putting in the bed. We're moving on to week 5, and I want you to look ahead just a little bit more because we got bye weeks coming up. Okay, and if your teams look anything like mine, I at least went above 500 this week. I was 8-7, counting my college league. I was 8-7 overall. So at least I was above 500, and that's a rarity this year. If your team looks anything like mine do, I got IR spots that are plumb full. I've had to cut people that were on the IR just to make spots for people who are on the IR that I didn't want to lose. So you've heard of Beat the Waiver Wire. This is Beat the Bye Week. Okay, look ahead for the next couple of weeks and see when bye weeks start. And go get you some potential replacements to allow for injuries and, the bye itself. This is Beat the Bye Week. That's your tip for this week. Go see who's out there that's got some possible productivity. Hunter Renfrow, who I love. He gets targeted every game fairly heavily. He's probably available in shallower leagues to mid deep leagues. Deeper leagues, probably not, but check out your Hunter Renfrows. Check out your Cole Beasleys, Emmanuel Sanders. Check those guys out in different leagues and see if they're available and stash them. As far as quarterbacks go, hey, look, if Sam Darnold's available in one quarterback leagues, it's not a bad idea, to try to beat the bye week. I would say the same thing for Bridgewater, but he got a concussion. Okay, so he's kind of day-to-day and week-to-week right now with the head injury. Drew Lock's to be determined. My shares of the wide receiving core there in Denver kind of took a hit. Look, here's the big one, though. And if you haven't, waivers have already ran because it's Wednesday instead of Tuesday. But if you're in a shallower league, go get Laviska Shenault. He's going to be taking on a bigger role because DJ Chark broke his foot. So there's some names for you right there to beat the bye week. If they're available in shallower leagues, dynasty leagues, forget it. But redraft leagues and shallower leagues, if those guys are available, go get them now and stash them. Antonio Brown's another one that he's back from COVID. He played against New England. He's another one that is kind of under the radar, may be available, may not. But check and see who's out there. If you are over in any league, and I'm still over in one league, 0-4, in a league where I was in the championship the past 2 seasons. So if you're over, don't panic yet, but this is our week. Okay? We got to get a win in week 5. If we don't get a win in week 5, our teams are pretty much, dead in the water. You're not coming back 5 games out. If you get a win here, there's still hope. Okay, I got a win in a couple of leagues over the weekend I really needed. I finally lost in the Devy League. Hadn't been beaten in the Devy League for a long time. Finally got beat in the Devy League. Didn't hurt me. I got wins in leagues that I really needed them in. So I'll take that. That's huge. Keeps me afloat. 0-4, you're not dead. 0-5, we're in trouble. And I'm saying as me as well, because I still got one league where I'm an offer, and took the team to the championship back-to-back seasons. It's almost a complete redraft. You can keep 2 players, but it's almost a complete redraft. And I was behind the 8 ball already because one of my keepers was going to be Cam Akers, and he got hurt before training camp even started. So that hurt me right off the bat. But I was able to adjust for it because the draft was way after he got hurt, so I didn't have to keep him. But I was planning on him and Dalvin Cook being my 1-2. Dalvin Cook's been a little bit of a letdown. Alvin Kamara's been a little bit of a letdown. Alvin Kamara caught 0 passes last week. 0. Dalvin Cook's been hurt for the past 2 weeks. So you got 2 of the top 5 running backs in the NFL not performing up to speed. Derrick Henry's doing good. Christian McCaffrey's hurt again. Okay, so if you spend a top, 5, 6, 7 pick on a running back, yeah, that's hurting. If you get Christian McCaffrey back and Dalvin Cook and able to stay healthy, I saw he didn't practice again today. Maybe they're trying to just save him, but it's a little bit of a risk. I have to play Dalvin Cook in the leagues I have him in. If he's healthy and he's active, you got to play him because you built your team around him. Same with McCaffrey, Kamara. I'm still running Kamara out there. Okay, but they've got to find a way to get him more involved in the passing game. And if they don't, he's going to start to squeak, a squeaky wheel. He's going to start to squeak real loud, and they're going to have to give him some grease at some point. So I'm not giving up on these guys, but it is rough because if you drafted these guys high, you're probably suffering, but you're not the only one. There are others of us out there who are, just hoping that the middle part of fantasy, we're able to keep our head above water, stay afloat, and, get ourselves to where these guys are getting healthy. We get them back, and then we're not so far out of it that we can't make a late playoff run. And it ain't about what seed you get in the playoff. Who cares if you're not the 1 seed? All that matters is that you get in. A couple of wide receivers that have let me down. CeeDee Lamb may have had 1 catch last week against Carolina. Okay, yet to have a big game. I kept him in Dynasty in a bunch of leagues, drafted him fairly high, not first, second round kind of thing in redrafts, but drafted him as, a higher end wide receiver 2 to low end wide receiver 1. Hasn't done much. T. Higgins has been hurt. He started off good, got hurt. He's kind of hurting you. The Julio experiment is kind of what I thought it was going to be in Tennessee. A.J. Brown's hurt. That really hurts. It also hurts your shares of Tannehill. The injuries are really bad right now, but if you can get a win or 2, I'm not even saying string together, a couple, 2 or 3 in a row, but if you can win 2 out of 3, and you're 0-4, and you can win the next 2 out of 3, there's still hope for you if you're 0-4. Well, if we get to 0-5, I'll address that next week. Hopefully, that doesn't come to that, but if we are to 0-5, I'll address that next week. That was quick. Just wanted to jump on and state of the NFL kind of thing right now. 4 weeks in. Good luck to you this week in your fantasy leagues. My name is Chris Strasball. You can find me on Twitter at Hateful Hitman. You can find the show everywhere: Podbean, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio. I'm on YouTube now. Just audio. All over the place. Thank you for listening. Thank you for getting me to 1,000 plays on Podbean. That was cool. Good luck this week. See you next time on The Hitman Show.